There was a book called The Vision in Swedish Cinema, and his point was that there was really no vision of the real daily Sweden of the 1960s in the cinema. The film industry was still producing comedies and entertainment that looked like it had looked since the 1930s. And he was very inspired by the French Nouvelle Vague by Truffaut and Le 400 coups and Jules Jim and films like that. And he wanted the Swedish film to be like that, to put the real people and real life up on the screen. And he said it's not being shown, and he was right. And he said, we have one great artist in Ingmar Bergman. Ingmar Bergman, okay, but he's not interested in real people, in the ordinary Swedish people. He is only interested in God. And the ordinary Swedish people, the ordinary Swedish man and woman, they are not very interested in God. So we need someone who talks about ordinary life. When he wrote the book, he wasn't thinking that he himself was going to be a director. He was an author. And so the book was more of a debate for anyone to read. But at the same time, when he wrote the book, he was just someone, the head of a studio, asked him to do movies. It's well enough to write how we should do it, but go up there and do it yourself. It was sort of a challenge to him, and Bo accepted that. His first film was shot in the summer of 1962.
Här kommer ni, göm dig för fan, kryp in här i rocken.
Vad sysslar du med?
Skydda mig! Sebba, det var luften är farlig vet jag, men... Men fan vågar andas nu för tiden. Titta! Titta, det kommer ett nytt. Kom här.
Du verkar knasig.
Det är jag som är knasig. Ja.
Oh, I'd say he was the one who brought the French New Wave to Sweden. That was his thing, really. And it opened up people's eyes to, when they saw the film Barnvagnen, Le Péché Suédois, yeah. It was like people had walked in from the street and up on the screen. And they hadn't seen films like that before. Actually, he was a much better director than author. He said of his own books that he looked on them as a sort of dead pieces of Swedish literature. He wasn't happy with them. And it's interesting because what's really good about them is the way he describes atmosphere and milieu. And that he brought into the films as well. But the characters doesn't seem real. Actually, some of the dialogue sounds like the dialogue that he accused Bergman of using, not very sounding realistic and so forth. And also I think he wanted to portray the working class. And in literature, we already had in Sweden great writers that wrote about the working class. So he didn't feel necessary in literature, but in film he was really necessary, essential. He was a leftist director. He wanted to show the real people, but also because he wanted their lives to be shown to everyone, so not to be ignored by film. And he was on the side of the working man against the capitalists or whatever. So he was a social democrat, I think. I think he mostly voted social democrat, but probably a little to the left of the social democrats anyway. So it was important for him to show, what do you call it, the fight between the classes, and especially in ODonnell, of course, about the working demonstration, and the Les Ouvriers who was on strike. And he wanted to show people like that. So it was always a social background to what he wanted to show, that's right. But on the other hand, I'd like to say that he was also, it was not only about a better life, more money for the worker and so forth, and making their working conditions better. He wanted that. But he also wanted the ordinary Swedish man and woman to sort of experience life better. He loved classical music, he loved art, Les Impressionistes, Monet and Renoir, and he loved good food. and he loved sex, for that matter. So he wanted, and the Swedes weren't very good at taking part in all this. The Swedes were puritanical, and so they thought, you know, oh, that excellent food, that's not for me, really. I shouldn't have that excellent food. And classical music, that's just for the upper classes and so forth. So in his films you can see all this, that he pushes this forward and tells people, you know, even if you don't have very much money, you can still enjoy art and music.
Det är olika konstnärer.
Ja, det är Monet och Renoir, det är två impressionister. Och de använde hela sitt liv till att försöka hitta ett sätt att fånga ljuset. Titta på den här.
Det är Renoir det här.
Nej.
Renoir.
Nej,
Renoir.
Nej, Renoir. Säger man på franska. Renoir, så skorrar man. Renoir.
Renoir, ska det vara ett ö på eter?
Nej, inte ett ö, men ett ö, säger man. Ö.
Renoir.
Ja.
Pierre Auguste.
Mm.
Pierre Auguste.
Auguste.
It's not just raw realism. It's not just documentary. It's a little more poetry in it. Yes, this is going to be about ordinary people. It's going to be realism, and it's going to be about people having a hard time. But it's also going to be about their dreams, about everything else that's in life. And in fact, when he made ODonnell, it was criticized a lot in Sweden for being, this was, you know, in 1969, and the revolutionary spirit was living since May 68, and a lot of leftist writers in the papers said, ODonnell, this color movie is too beautiful. You can't make such a beautiful movie about the death of 5 people in a demonstration. And so he got a lot of criticism for that. But he said, but it was a beautiful day, and that's historically correct. It was an extremely beautiful day. So everyone put on the best suits for this demonstration. And he said, I wanted the contrast between the very beautiful landscape and the horrible things taking place. And he also said one thing which I think is quite a good point, because some people said, oh, it's a color movie. Color wasn't that much used then. And they said, this is, you know, it should be realistic. It should be in black and white, not color. And Bo said, what are you talking about? Color is the way it looks in real life. It's black and white that's not realistic.
Titta, Martin.
Du börjar. Ja.
The film industry was very much an industry. They had this idea of how a perfect image should look like, for example, a perfect photo. And Bo changed that. He said, you know, Elvira Madigan was very important in the color photography because Technicolor had been very much in charge since the 1930s. And Technicolor colors, like in The Wizard of Oz or what's it called, Gone with the Wind, they are very pretty but also very unrealistic. So he made Elvira Madigan with no artificial light at all, almost no artificial light, to show what it could look like, and they had other skin color tones and so forth. So that changed a lot as well, and it was internationally. When he came to Hollywood, big producers and directors asked him, how did you manage the colors in Elvira Madigan? And he was very proud of this. He was very much loved by actors. And what they said to me, I interviewed a lot of actors who worked with him. They said to me that Bo was always looking at the new actor and asking, what can you bring to the film? It wasn't important to him that he had his lines read exactly as he had written them in the manuscript. His lines was just something to begin with. Then he wanted your personality to show through. So he adapted himself to who he worked with. In Elvira Madigan, for example, he had one very professional actor, Tommy Berggren, playing the male lead. He was an excellent actor, and they had a love-hate relationship. And then the young girl, Pia Degermark, in Elvira Madigan, she was only 16, had never acted, wasn't interested in acting at all. So then he had a lot of Tommy Berggren's work, the male lead's work, turned out to be to assist the young girl and help her and sort of build her up and so forth. So he directed them in two different ways. Tommy Berggren, that was a very special relation because they were a wonderful team, of course, but they had a love-hate relationship. At the beginning of the shooting of the films, they loved each other, and at the end of the shooting, they hated each other because both were very difficult people and very wanted to do things their own way. And also Bo manipulated people. So there is a scene in Elvira Madigan when they have no money at all. And the girl says to Sixten, as he's called in the film, "Why don't you take a work? Why don't you take a job?" And he gets very angry and he says, you know, how could I take a job? I'm an officer, I'm on a run from the law, how could I take a job? And Pierre Degermark told me that Bo had sort of teased Tommy that day, or, you know, annoyed him, so he was even more angry than he should have been. And actually when they shot it the first time, Pierre Degermark sort of jumped out of the frame because she was so scared for him.
Då spelar vi bara den här andra sidan, va?
Jaha.
Ja.
The girl, Inge Taube, she was a model actually, and she had never acted before. But Bo wanted her because when he spoke to her, she had a spirit. She was funny, she was tough, and he wanted this. And so they went to shoot this scene in the library, and this was one of the first scenes that they shot. And Bo was disappointed because she had her lines, but now when she read her lines, they were dull, they were lifeless, they weren't the lines the way he wanted her to say them. So then he said to her, "Let's forget about the script. We'll shoot this we'll shoot this for a long time. We will have the camera on you, and you will talk to Tommy, and Tommy will sort of back you up. He will listen very carefully, being very interested, and you have that line and that line and that line, and you have to say this eventually, somewhere along the line. You have to say it, but you can get there any way you want to, and you can take your time getting there." She was free to speak the way she wanted to. And when he saw this at the editing table, he was thrilled, he was overjoyed, because this was exactly what he had been looking for in acting.
Du vet, en gång... Ja, Robban var en sån kille som gjorde en pryl liksom. Men han kunde liksom inte... Förstår du, avsluta? Förstår du vad jag menar? Han kunde inte...
Vad menar du? Jag tar
Sluta.
något exempel eller hur?
Om sängen gick sönder så kunde den stå 3 månader utan att laga den. Han var liksom den. Nu.
Jag förstår vad du menar.
Ja, det är så svårt.
Jag förstår vad du menar.
He could spend a whole, what do you call it, morning just talking to the actors, being with them, talking to them, talking about football, about anything, you know, to get them to relax. And I think that was also one of the reasons he had the camera running, because everyone knew in those days you had film, and that was very expensive. So you got kind of nervous when he came in front of a camera and thinking about, oh, all the expense, all the film that's running through. So just by having the film running, he showed, you know, I don't care about this. We'll act. We don't think about the money that's running away with us. You know, don't care about anything like that. And I think that was also a way to sort of make the actor feel more, don't feel the stress of being expensive for the film company. Well, he had problems with the film industry. They were afraid to work with him, and he was a very difficult man to work with. I wrote a biography on Bo Widerberg, and the question in my head all the time while I was writing was the film industry unfair to Bo Widerberg, or was he really almost impossible to work with? Because he hated planning. He was afraid of depression, and he was afraid that if he came to a place, if he came here and to shoot a scene and knew exactly how everything should be done, he would get no life into it. He needed to have some sort of excitement, some sort of feeling that we don't know really what's going to happen. And when I did research for my biography, I found letters. It was a production between Bo Widerberg Film, but also the Swedish Film Institute and Svensk Filmindustri, SF, that was a big film company. So the Swedish Film Institute and the big film company. And after En flick sur le toit, even though it had been such a big hit, the production departments on the Swedish Film Institute and on SF both said, we don't want to work with Bo Widerberg again. We can maybe give him some money if someone else produces, but we don't involve us in working with Widerberg again. And I think they could have shown a little more spirit, a little more guts or courage, but they didn't.
Om jag är lycklig. Du frågar om jag är lycklig. Ibland frågar jag mig själv om jag har rätt att vara så här lycklig. Vi kanske lever ett liv som man inte kan leva än. Men det kommer en tid, Hedvig. Det kommer en tid då man får välja mer än en gång. Mer än ett liv. En tid då människan vågar erkänna att hon förändras.